Welcome to episode 3 of Grieving Heartbeats. In today's episode, we're going to talk about superstitions and cultural differences within the South Asian communities, and I think there's lots to talk about there.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think I want to start things off by just asking you what's your take on it? Because first of all, everything is sided towards the woman in terms of superstitions and
Most of it, yeah.
yeah. So first of all, what's your take on this topic before
Oh gosh, there's
get into
so
the
much to say. I don't know if we could fit it into an hour, but I feel like a lot of the rules that were put in place, this was obviously, our forefathers and ancestors putting this all in place. And I think it was suited to those times. Yeah. And there were reasons behind it. These things aren't just put in place willy-nilly. It's there because it served a purpose during that time period. And maybe as we've moved forward, that's kind of changed. But also the meaning of those rules have changed, and it's almost being turned into something negative. So, for example, I guess one of the biggest flaws with rules that come with baby loss. So one of them is how women can't attend Indian baby showers or koros. And that was obviously in place once upon a time because we don't want to hurt mum's feelings. There's a lot of mothers in this day and age who don't feel comfortable going to baby showers anymore. So that rule was kind of there to protect women, I think. And now it's turned into your bad luck. You can't go to this. And, I've spoken to so many mums in the lost community in the last few weeks about all this. And a lot of people sadly came back to me and said they'd been told to their face that it's contagious and they shouldn't be around other pregnant women or go to these events. And it's just shocking, isn't it? Because it's so sad, like that you think you're going to catch that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, from a male perspective, personally, I think it's just ludicrous. Again, just to kind of buff that superstition. Again, for the reason why I ask you the question is, why is that just from a woman's point of view? Like, again, traditionally, when you look at it, up until very recently, the men, once again, are completely away from
men didn't go to this stuff.
Men never went to these kind of functions.
Which is maybe why it wasn't pinned on men that you're bad luck.
No, but and that's the point though, right? So the way that it's kind of changed and flipped on its head to say that it's now bad luck for a woman to go, how would that woman feel if I turned up to her baby shower? As in, is the man actually even considered in that equation? Like, if I turned up, would it still be a happy occasion? Or would you feel that it's still bad luck in the same way? Because I don't feel like it is. First of all, because it's not talked about. First of all, it's just not a thing. And that's okay. But why then has it been turned on its head for a woman? It's just strange that it's gone from the point of view where trying to protect the woman who's gone through something to then being actually you're not welcome anymore.
Yeah.
It's just ludicrous. Because
even the 6th day ceremony, right? As we call it, the chatti.
Yes.
We can't go to that either.
No.
But again, so personally, I wouldn't want to go to an Indian baby shower anymore because I have too many memories attached. Fine. But I know there's a lot of women who would want to go to this stuff still. They should be
able to go freely.
Yeah. And when there has been an Indian baby shower in the last 5 years, I've been invited quite open-armed. I've not actually experienced, the I'm bad luck, and people have been very welcoming, which is quite lucky. But I myself don't want to go, and I don't want to go to the 6th day ceremony either. I'm personally, it's difficult for me to see a newborn baby because it reminds me directly of origin. So I'm happy for people who have babies and baby showers, absolutely. And that's another thing that's kind of misconstrued, isn't it? Absolutely. Everyone thinks you're not going to go because you'll be jealous and envious. And it's like, no, we're really happy for you. We're just sad for ourselves. We miss our baby.
Yeah.
So I feel quite protected with these rules, but that people are becoming quite lenient with them as well, which is kind of like, I still feel the pressure to go. So now we're floating in the middle and, we're kind of stuck. But again, men weren't involved in all this stuff. So you've not been planted as the bad luck, but also everyone's opened up and they're inviting men now. So men aren't really safe from potential triggers anymore, which is a bit sad. But also, you're not included in the emotional talk and the comforting and the support after something tragic happens.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely had support when Arjun passed away.
Absolutely.
I'd say, but not as well supported as me, maybe.
Oh, definitely.
And I think we're quite lucky that we do have male figures in our life that know how to be supportive.
Yeah, as in for me, there were a handful of people that were there the way that they should have been, and they did everything that they needed to. And in that regard, I had absolute support from a handful of people. There was definitely support that I had to go out and chase.
But the sad thing is, very specifically, I have to say, South Asian communities, I feel like men are almost encouraged to be a bit disconnected. But I mean, I'm sure it's true in a lot of communities, but South Asian men I've seen, they'll turn up with a bit of a blank face just to say, I'm here. Mm-hmm. But then there's no support beyond that. There's no real conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like they play more of a part as a distraction. Yeah. I remember when my dad lost my sister, I don't think he had any support. I remember him saying he had to go collect her death certificate on the day on his own. Whereas you had your brother and you had friends who were like, shall I come? And you had friends turning up for you.
And the importance of having someone there. I mean, when I had to go and get the death certificate for Arjun, Manish was there with me.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was sitting there was another couple there that were getting the birth certificate.
Because it's in the same place.
It's the same place.
Yeah.
And, you're sat across from someone who's elated. They just had their baby. They're getting all the proceedings ready. And I'm sitting there with my brother, like kind of distraught. But imagine doing that alone. So
yeah. And
you need someone. You have to have someone
on the day as well. Like, you're just taking it in, that I've just lost my 6-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
You're trying to process that. You're by yourself, and that's it. Everyone was probably in there collecting birth certificates for newborn babies, and he's probably having flashbacks of when his first child was born, and now she's not. And it's sad to not have that support when you need it. Absolutely. But also, I think people also, they want to tread carefully as well. And this is the other thing. I think South Asian communities are actually, weirdly, because of what we're discussing, they're very good at coming together.
They're great at coming together.
We have a lot of what they call biswanos. When someone passes away, everyone's at your house immediately for days until the funeral. But when it's a baby or a child, I think people are a bit more nervous because they know it's a tragic loss. It's terrible. So do we go? Do we not? It's one of those losses that are just unimaginable. So people are a bit unsure. And then the couple themselves might be a bit unsure of what they actually want. I mean, you wanted the community around you.
Yes, I did.
I didn't.
I didn't. But it's a funny one because I think my mindset was that, yes, I did want people around me just because I was quite an extrovert and I just gravitate towards groups and kind of being in that element. However, a lot of my healing was done alone, which is really strange because my best healing for me, myself, I think was done, whilst I was on my walks and I just, and I know that wouldn't be the same for everyone. There are some people that prefer to kind of exercise those kind of emotions with people as well. And I thought I'd be one of them.
But
for me, it was a good mix of both.
I was going to say, I think you had a good mix.
I needed those people.
Yeah.
And like I said, the handful of people that were there and supported in the best way that they could really, really helped me. Yeah. I struggled with some of the people that I thought would have been and weren't.
Yeah.
However, it's still the aspect of healing on my own that really helped me a lot as well. So I think it was a combination of everything, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I think I don't think you'd seen a lot of loss through your life, but I think the ones you probably did, or funerals you may have attended, you saw everyone coming together. I think you almost automatically thought people were just going to be there when Arjun did pass away.
Yeah.
And I the back of my mind, because of the losses I've seen, I think I knew that it was going to go both ways, but majority people would fall off. So I was watching you nervously when you were kind of going home to when people were coming around, you were seeing them, and I was just thinking, I wonder who it will be. And I knew they would be, even though we've been very, very close to these people, I knew there were going to be one or two people. And I was just sitting there like, I wonder who. I really wonder. But I knew it was going to happen, because it does. It's sad, but not everyone's equipped to deal with these situations, because why would we be? No one teaches you this stuff, I suppose. You come from a place of your own experience.
Yeah.
And I say this to a lot of people, that before we experienced this loss, I don't know how much empathy I really carried, or how much I understood. Maybe I carry empathy, but I think I didn't understand just
I'd agree with that, yeah.
Yeah. How severe, how painful that experience truly, truly is, and how to support someone who's gone through baby loss. And I think, like I said, I think it's nice that the communities come together, but when it comes to baby loss, I don't think people understand what they need to do, because there's not enough importance given to unborn babies as it is, right? That's why when people miscarry, it's very like, have another one.
Yeah, but it goes back to points you made previously as well. I think even in the other episodes about the natural order in that sense. I think people just, they suddenly don't know what to do because it's not following a natural order. So, I mean, loss is never great for anyone, obviously. Grief is always going to be there. But if it's someone from the older generation, it's kind of following that natural order of things like you...
But also, I think people think that that's a greater loss because you've had so much time with them, you've had a connection with them, and therefore they've passed away, and now you've got this void in your life.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, from my personal experience, this has been harder.
Yeah.
It's my child. So I feel like people come from their own attachment with your baby, and they don't know your baby. They.
Well, it's almost it's the idea of what could have been. It just seems to be a lot worse, doesn't it? Because your mind wanders in so many different areas, and you start thinking about so many different things about what could have been. Whereas when you're either celebrating someone's life or grieving someone's death, if they're an elder person, you're thinking back on their life. So you've obviously got cherished memories. You've got really profound visions of time spent with that person, which is equally as hard. But when you try to then vision a life of your child, that's no more.
Yeah.
Like,
and the thing is, it's not everyone's pain, sadly.
It's not everyone's pain.
It's very much about the couple.
Well, yeah, no one can sit here with us and say, Urjan was going to go on to do X, Y, and Z. Urjan was going to be this. Urjan was going to do this. And you can't blame anyone for that, but that's your own kind of journey. But that's what takes up all of your kind of mental,
Yeah, I mean,
capacity.
I've seen people be very dismissive with baby losses because they just don't give that baby as much importance. Again, because they didn't know the baby, and they just think, well, you didn't know it either, so just have another one, and you'll be more attached to the one that does survive. And that's not the case for parents. And it's difficult when 100%. People can't meet you where you are. They're dismissing your experience, and they debate it with you because, not too long ago, somebody said, I don't understand your grief. I mean, I've had that message come through a lot of times, even in my DMs, like, I don't understand your grief. And it's like, well, you're lucky you don't understand it, but you don't need to understand it. You just need to understand that I am in great pain. This is my child. It might not be anyone or anything to you. And I appreciate that. You didn't know him. You don't have that attachment, but I do. So someone, if it's your loved ones, your family and your friends, they should meet you where you are. And that's the problem. People don't want to do that. They're just, and some people have almost had a bit of an attitude about it. Like, some people have. You shouldn't be grieving. That's it at the end. They're angry at you for even feeling that pain. They're just so strongly opinionated, and all they feel they can do is try to get their opinion across. Where, unfortunately, in those times, you're right. All you need someone to do. It goes back to that quote I said I really liked, and again, I can't remember who it came from, but
I don't need you to fix me. I just need you to sit in the mud with me.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that's literally what it is in those moments. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong.
Yeah.
You just, that's how you support someone.
Yeah.
Right? You don't tell them, you know what, you're wrong. You don't force your opinion. You can give your opinion, absolutely, but meet them in the middle. Because you're right. There are some people that have been really demanding and trying to get their opinion across. They're so strongly opinionated because they feel that they're right, and you can't blame them for that because that's their opinion.
Yes. Yeah.
However, in that time, you don't need to bring it across so strongly. Like, sit with that person.
Yeah.
Try and understand their point of view without making your own rash decisions, because you can always speak to that person later.
Yeah.
They're obviously grieving. It's quite fresh as well. We're not talking it's been years and years and you still need to feel like you can't share that opinion. If you've been with someone on that journey from the beginning,
yeah,
then absolutely you can, a couple of years down the line, you're allowed to, you formulated that journey with that person. You've been there from day one. They're going to be a lot more invested in what you try to say and how you try to say it.
Yeah.
And I feel like many of the relationships that have kind of fallen apart, unfortunately, is because people are just so involved with these superstitions and these stigmas and that it's kind of those ideas and that ideology that's making their perception.
Yeah. Which is what makes baby loss and child loss grief so isolating.
100%.
Because it's one of the hardest losses and it's one of the most isolating. I mean, we see communities coming together when it's someone a little bit older who's passed away. I mean, people remember the death anniversaries. People will do prayers for them or do some charity walks. There's so much that happens. But when it comes to baby loss, everyone tends to just forget about it. And when they do see you and they do have something to say, it's always something just not very helpful. I mean, I'm going to because obviously we've had less of it because of the generation we're from. But, when I think back to how my parents were treated, and it's just disgusting. I mean, I'd heard the stuff that was said to my parents from years before. But now that I've actually lost Arjun, I'm like, now I feel it more. Because if someone said that to me, that would break my heart. I mean, someone said to my mum, God took your daughter away because you didn't go to the temple enough or you didn't pray enough. And, there was loads of stuff that was being said because of stuff they didn't follow that they should have, whether it's religious or just the rules that were culturally made. And I hate that. I hate that people sit there and try and put stuff like that together and tell you exactly why. I mean, someone told me Arjun passed away because their tulsi fell out of their window. And then what else did I hear? This is stuff that's been said to other people as well, because obviously, it's the same. A lot of the stuff is stuck with a lot of families. What was the other one? There was one about buying clothes for babies. That's a big one.
That's a big one.
Don't buy anything for the baby until the baby has arrived.
God, yeah.
And
that's a really, really big one.
That's a huge one. And someone said that to me when this is before Arjun passed away. But somebody was like, "Oh, you've bought stuff for him. Like you're not meant to until the baby's here." And I'm like, it's not really efficient, is it? Like I can't wait to get everything in one hit. But some people do. I mean,
but sometimes it almost makes me want to say to some people, again, I think these superstitions are ridiculous, and the more we can try and break them down, the better. But if when you come at it from the other angle, why is it that someone thinks it's okay to say, "Oh, you did this," and that's not going to be good?
Yeah.
Why don't you think about actually the fact that you're saying that? What if that's the reason? If someone's going to look into these superstitions in that way,
you jinxed
what
it.
if it
why
was
did you say that?
you saying it in the first place that made it happen? Like, why don't people think from that angle before saying it? So let's not follow the old traditions. Not old traditions. Let's not follow the old superstitions down to a T.
Yeah.
Let's break them down and actually just think about what's behind it.
Well, exactly.
Do I need to say this?
So that rule was in place in case you did experience a loss.
Yeah.
And it would be heartbreaking to then give those items away. I mean, we didn't give everything away because we knew eventually we will have children to, you know, pass those things down to.
Yeah.
But there's a few bits that we gave away, like when we'd bought well, there's a few bits that were needed to be used at the time, and we gave that away. We had to dismantle furniture, and that was really, really tough. So I get why they put that in place.
Well, yeah, I mean, rules and superstitions were obviously all put in place for good reasons in that sense. No one just made up a ridiculous superstition.
But back then, you didn't need to buy things in terms of
exactly,
efficiency because
exactly.
there was a village back in those days. People would give you things. There would be stuff in the house already. There'd be an entire village coming to give you these things. Absolutely. It's not practical for in this day and age in our generation.
Well, a lot of people want
no one's going to come buy you a car seat that costs hundreds of pounds. No one's going to give you a pram. No one's going to get you a cot because of the time we live in.
Absolutely. It's to do with the practicality.
It's practicality.
A lot of people nowadays want something brand new. But, you know, whether they're having the first, the second, or the third, sometimes people just want brand new items because for their baby, and that's absolutely fine.
Do you remember when we were buying stuff for Arjun and that lady in the shop was just like, we had a Indian dad come in like this week, and he was so frantic about buying everything. And she was like, when's the baby due? And he was like, I need to buy it now. My baby's here. The baby arrived this morning. But it stuck in him so much that, they didn't buy a single item and bought it that morning in a rush.
And lots of people still do that. But imagine going through that list at that time. But for example, the baby seat, most hospitals now, you're not even allowed to leave the hospital without them knowing that you've got a baby seat.
And they've checked it. They've come and looked at it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you need the baby seat in the hospital to carry the baby out.
But what's funny is, look at the stats, right? There's so many cultures out there that, you know, let's not include Indian culture for a second. Everyone else buys the stuff at the time when they need to. They're efficient. Yeah. Who has the most number of baby losses?
Yeah.
So we follow all this superstitious stuff.
So true.
But South Asians are the ones that are high on the list of losing babies.
Very good point.
So it's not about, I bought my baby a bottle or a toy and it passed away. It's a whole different issue altogether. It's the inequalities. It's the way the hospitals are functioning. There's a lot of different factors to why our babies are dying.
100%.
And it's not because we washed our hair while we were pregnant. Even that rule. That was put in place. And there's so many women who still tell me that when they were pregnant, you know, aunties, mother-in-laws, mums were like, you can't wash your hair. And that was there in place because back in the days, women used to go to the rivers and whatnot to bathe, and you don't want them to fall over and hurt themselves. There was a reason behind all of this. And people just, if you ask a lot of people, why can't I do that? They don't actually have an answer. They're just
we were
told. Yeah, you're blindly following it.
And that, again, it works in both ways. That's for the superstitions, but then also a lot of the rules that we follow. The reason so many of these stigmas are born is because of these rules and superstitions.
And no one explains why.
Yeah.
The real meaning has disappeared. No, but the real meaning has disappeared. And it's been replaced with, this is bad luck. It's just bad luck.
And then that's been thrown into a mix of society now. Yeah. You know, as the generations have kind of moved on, you try and blindly follow these rules. I mean, there's some rules even within my own family that we've had to follow sometimes, and I see no sense in it. And it makes life more difficult having to try and follow these rules. And actually, the end result has sometimes ended up being worse because you've tried to follow a rule and tried to do the right thing. So true. It's not practical, and sometimes you don't even know why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And I just think the same way that works with rules, that should work with stigmas, and that should work with superstitions. If people thought about it and actually really broke it down, I feel like they could do so much better in so many situations because it's a human to human kind of empathetic response. Rather than I have to mix and swirl my empathy with what I know and this isn't right and they should have done this, so I'm going to act a certain way.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong, right?
I feel like people put themselves on a bit of a pedestal in that sense.
Sometimes.
You should have done this.
Some people have.
Yeah.
Some people have.
You shouldn't have bought this. I knew this was going to happen because this happened. And there was one of the weirdest ones I heard was we knew this was going to happen because of the shape of her bump. That they'd seen a picture of my baby shower.
Yeah.
I was wearing a sari, so my bump was beneath my sari, and I think I was like 5 months pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
So what did you take from my bump exactly? Did the shape of my bump determine that the hospital was going to be short-staffed on the day?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. And people are trying to find different reasons to why I lost Arjun in the first place without actually listening to the real reason. Hospital was understaffed. That wasn't because of a superstition.
Well, the facts are there, right? So
yeah.
When you get
and also if you believe in that, is it good to say that to the parents? He's already passed away now. Is that going to make me feel better, or is that going to make me feel more guilty?
Yeah, some people can't help themselves, and you have to wonder why.
Yeah, you can't support me, but you've come to me just to tell me that I knew this was going to happen because you did this, and it's like that's not helpful.
They're there to make the comments, but if you want a conversation with them, again, they're closed off.
And they really do treat you like it is contagious. I mean, I don't know for how many years people kept their distance from my parents. Not a lot of people did that, of course, but there were a fair few people who kept their distance, weren't very helpful.
Yeah,
and
you're suddenly almost tainted.
Yeah, and they suffered for years. I saw it, right? It took them a very long time to heal because, like I said, people mostly want to come together, but they don't have any. There's no practical use of you being there as well, because, like I said, we have all these best funnels and people come to sit after someone passes away, but it's almost like a tick in the box situation. I was there, I sat down, and then I left. A lot of people were calling me after Arjun passed away. This is months later because I wasn't picking up the phone, obviously, at the beginning, in fear that people would say something weird, because that was happening as well. And
well, that's another funny one, right? Because that's become your fault. But because you tried to do a few things at the beginning of your grief journey, someone's seen that as, for example, someone might want to reach out to you, and you've not kind of entertained it as soon as as soon as you have a loss, you might not entertain wanting to speak to someone. Yeah, they feel like that was their effort and it was kind of thrown away. There's now judgment on that person to say, well, this happened, so forget about it.
Yeah, you didn't let me come and see you.
Yeah.
You
so
didn't invite
months
me to
and
a
months
funeral.
later, when you try and have that conversation, that's their viewpoint.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, again, they're allowed to have that opinion. They're allowed to have that say-so. But don't be so arrogant with that opinion. Or don't be so set in your mind that
there's still a loss
I
that's
tried
happened.
and you didn't let me. It's not a normal... It's not just a small argument that happened between friends, for example, where you have that sort of animosity, or, you're friends. You have that kind of friction sometimes and you come back together. This is a loss. Like, it's so different, right? How do you know how someone's going to react in a moment of loss? Some people might be calm and collected, even in the event of baby loss. Some people could be so fragile that you can't even go near them. Some people, the way people react is so different.
Yeah.
And the message to get out there to everyone is, in order to help anyone that's experienced a loss like that, just be there for them, right?
Yeah.
And even if you don't agree with it in the moment, do your part, be there. Because at a later stage, you can have that conversation with some people. Yeah. There's those handful of people that have been extremely supportive with me, who felt like I didn't do a few things right at that time. And absolutely, probably so. It's not like I knew what I was doing a lot of the time at that time.
You're not going to know.
No, you're not. But I can have that conversation with them now. Yeah. And I'm happy to have that conversation with them, even if there's a bit of friction, even if they've got some strong opinions that they want to discuss with me. Yeah. They were still there for me.
I love when people do that. Like one of your cousins very specifically, and I love him for this. He's very openly said he feels sad that he wasn't included in the funeral.
Yes.
And he's talked about this 2-3 times, but I love that because he's letting us know in such a beautiful way that he wanted to be there and he wanted to support and he wanted to meet his nephew. I absolutely love it. 100%. And, I'd never tire of just being like, I don't want you to feel offended, and I don't mind having that conversation. I want him to understand why we had a small funeral because he's seeing it from his perspective. I mean,
Absolutely.
If we'd had a funeral for Arjun, there would have been way too many people there.
Yeah.
We have, gosh, how big is our family? You have 120.
Probably about
Then
that.
I would have had my family.
Yeah.
And then, all my family mostly live abroad. So it would have been 1,000,001 of my friends.
But even me personally, because I remember we did discuss this briefly at the time. I know. Naturally, I would have said I do want a big funeral, but I know me personally, and if we had done that, that would have been really, really difficult for me.
You wouldn't have got the goodbye you needed to have because
I wouldn't have.
People, this is another Asian thing. Don't cry.
Yeah.
He's not going to like it. He'd want you to be happy, and it's so. I hate hearing all that. And I knew that was all going to be said. And people won't let me grieve. People won't let me cry. And that's what I need at the time.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just like, I can't have that noise and I can't have people wiping my tears off my face and being like, no, don't cry.
Absolutely.
And I didn't want my focus to be on my guests and how to, conduct myself in front of people and try and keep it together, because that was my last moment with my son. So I needed it to be as less people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And explaining that to some people has been a breeze.
Yeah, some people just get it.
They're like,
and again, so equally, some of the conversations we have now. So some people have said, Rik, and they've been there throughout the entire journey. But some people say, Rik, I never got to say goodbye to Arjun. Yeah. And that's not then for me to say to kind of explode and not understand it. I completely understand that and appreciate it. The problem is some people that have kind of put those boundaries up or broken relationships, I can't have those conversations with them anymore.
No, they're not.
Because they're not willing to have the conversation.
No. Yeah.
And I'm not willing to meet some people halfway in the middle. This whole, be the bigger person.
Because the responsibility shouldn't be on us.
No. And I'm really, really strong on that point, because I'll do a lot for everyone, and I'll go out of my way and above and beyond for people. And I was always that person that did that. But when it comes to having that standpoint now, no. You can't just be the bigger person in all situations. It can't always just be you trying to teach someone about your loss. There's got to be an aspect or an element of someone meeting you halfway and just understanding.
Yeah.
Whereas we've had some people that have kind of turned it into arguments. Some people, or a lot of people that had just met with it with silence and absence at the time.
Yeah.
Those relationships break down and suddenly you can't talk to that person about anything. No. And some of those people have come back a long, long time after now and just feel like they want to step over it and just continue.
All it's under not the
that
rug.
Easy. Like how?
You've compounded on my pain.
Yeah.
You've left this massive gap. I've now healed, and you want to come back to this healed version and not mention this huge tragedy. Like 100%. That still impacts me to this day.
But it doesn't work because Arjun's a part of us now.
Yeah.
It's not, I will shout his name every single day because I want to, but it's not like I need to explain myself and say his name to every single person I speak to. I feel like some people just don't want to come back in a roundabout way because they don't want to hear certain things. And that's fine. It's not my life is now revolved around me having to say Arjun's name in every conversation. He's a part of me. He's my son.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Doesn't mean I can't ever be happy anymore. Doesn't mean I can't ever do some of the things that I wanted to do. Doesn't mean I haven't got an element of confidence back. Your life has to move forward, but it moves forward with him.
With him.
Right?
It's an element of our personality now life. And our life. And the 100%. Thing is, people want to shade over that part sometimes. And to me, the people who I have like that in my life, and there's very few because I think I find it really hard. If you can't accept Arjun as a part of my being, then I find it really difficult to have a very strong bond or relationship.
Yep.
So if you're going to brush over that, you don't know me fully. And we're not as close as you think we are, sadly. Absolutely. And that's why I struggle with the people who, because, loads of people, like the older generation, for example, when we had this friction with a few people, they were very much like our parents were very, my parents were very understanding that it's difficult for a lot of people because we're just not used to this kind of tragedy. So people find it hard because baby loss is very, very difficult. So they were just like, give people a bit of grace and a bit of opportunity, which we did.
Yep.
But there's only so much I can do.
I agree.
And if you're not going to meet me halfway, I can't give you that. I struggle. I need you to either accept him fully or just maintain your distance, because I personally can't. There will be so many times where he'll come up, and I need you to accept that side of me.
Absolutely. Like I said, it goes back to you can have those conversations with the people that have been there. I'm more than happy to sit down and have those conversations where they say, Rik, you know what? It would have been nice to have done this, but I understand why you did it. But you're allowed to have your opinion. You're allowed to have a strong opinion.
Yeah.
But only if you've been there for the whole of my journey, right?
Absolutely.
Only if you're willing to understand that right at the beginning, whether some things were right or wrong, I did things, or we did things to the best of our ability in our early grief stage at the time, not really understanding the world and navigating our new now.
People forget what's happened.
Yeah, they do.
We're not, I feel like people were almost punishing us.
It feels that way.
They punished us for losing a baby, and then
it feels that way.
Not coordinating ourselves correctly. Like, we didn't invite anyone home.
Yeah.
And it's also like, I think people have forgot almost that I've just given birth.
Yeah.
I'm very much postpartum. And I'm not comfortable having tons and tons of people coming round while I have a postpartum body.
Yeah.
And it was even harder accepting that women were feeling this way, because it's like, you've been through postpartum, you understand, and some people might not know this, but you bleed for 7 to 8 weeks. I had some people have tears. You're uncomfortable, you're bleeding, you're leaking milk, you're now crying because your baby's passed away. You've gone through this, it's trauma. It's so traumatic. And you're in a huff with me because I didn't let you come round, or I didn't have a big funeral.
And it's just strange that stems from love. It's that isn't, again, it's not because that person was a bad person or a hateful person.
No, they wanted to be involved.
They wanted to be involved.
Yeah, they wanted
to be there for you.
Yeah.
And it's just really strange to try and get your head around how it goes from that feeling and complete validation on how they're feeling in that regard, like they want to be there but they can't.
Yeah.
To how that then just stems into either kind of hate or kind of...
They're in a mood with you, basically.
Yeah, it's just
and there's
really...
even years later, it hasn't clicked to them that, oh God, they were going through something so tragic. They made it about themselves.
Yeah.
They made it about themselves. And I think I didn't see a lot of people back then, right? I think your cousins did a really good job, and your friends did a good job when they were trying to say, hey, if you're free, come meet me here if you feel comfortable, and you took that on. Whereas when people were reaching out to me, I was very much like, no, because I was not ready. I didn't want to see anybody. I wanted to grieve in isolation. I had those first few weeks where immediate family were around and Cav was coming round. So I had my friend with me, and that was sufficient for the time. It was a handful of people who really know me, knew the situation, were there at the hospital, and that was enough for me at the time. And I really liked having that company, actually.
Yeah.
But they also knew when to go home and leave us to grieve alone, which is really important as well. And I feel like sometimes guests might not understand that.
No.
Because again, postpartum body, people are coming round, and I was watching you every day, washing dishes, hoovering and stuff, because it's creating more work if we're having people around.
It is, yeah.
When I lost my grandmother, that was what's happening, right? Everyone comes around every single day, and we don't have a big family. There's no village again.
Yeah.
There's no village. So I'm grieving my grandmother, and I'm cleaning I'm washing dishes every single day, and I'm prepping for the funeral, and I'm doing a run to get the death certificate. I was doing all of this for her, and it was so much work, and I didn't have time to absorb the loss.
Personally, I think in our generation now, to be fair, get that point.
We're very funny about going to people's house too quickly, because we know it's a lot of work.
But even those 13 days after a loss, it's difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because the responsibilities on you to make sure that people are fed and people are coming around. Again, what started as something really sincere and nice, long time ago, generations ago, when you put the modern day society aspect on it and the kind of convenience and the practicalities of it, it doesn't always work. I mean,
it made sense
there's some
to them.
people that do like it, But I know that I've had many conversations with people, and I know lots of people who don't feel great about that whole process of the 13 days after. It's such a delicate time.
Yeah.
Then, you've got 50, 60 people coming to your house
Yeah.
every single day. For some people it works, again, but for a lot of people, and I say that knowing that I've had conversations with people who just don't understand it and just feel like it's very intrusive.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those kind of, I don't know if that's a superstition, but it's one of those kind of rules or superstitions, however you want to term it, or cultural things that we did. It's just viewed very differently now. I just feel like everything nowadays should have that new lens on it.
Yeah.
Don't blindly do anything.
Like I said, there was a village. If you're talking about that whole 13 days back in India, you have a whole community, and the funeral is done in one day. Now we have to plan it. We have to do things are very official.
Yeah.
So, and people have now started to do the whole sitting thing in one day. They'll hire so now you've got to pay for a hall for everyone to come in one go. So that's an additional cost. It's just it's not practical anymore. I think if it
even the whole like having a shower after. Again, it's one of those things.
I remember someone saying that to me.
People blindly
like,
follow. Why are you having a shower afterwards? Like, do people know the
meaning behind it,
right? And
like, I've just had my son's funeral. Is that something you need to remind me or tell me to do?
Like, really? Exactly.
That's not.
Is that the first thing I'm gonna do?
I don't care about it. I don't care.
I agree.
But it was like, this is why I wanted to isolate. I knew this stuff was coming, and people mean things out of love and whatever, but sometimes or they're just telling you the rules and what needs to happen according to our rule book. But to me, it's just like, this is so insensitive. I don't want to hear this. So this is why I was shutting myself away.
Well, it's a great example of what was practical. Like the reason that you have the shower for how the ceremonies used to happen back in the day. Well, and in some places still do. Like, it's practical.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Well, the person who gave us the hardest...
It's become a superstition.
Yeah.
That you have to do that. Otherwise, it's bad luck.
People just don't want to listen to how you feel, or the person who gave us the hardest time with this whole thing, when they finally did come and see us, they said one of the most triggering and worst things. And I had to stand there like, really good. Thank you for that. You've not listened to anything that anyone has told you. Yeah. I mean, this person didn't even know the full reason to why and how Arjun had passed away. And it's like, you could have sat and spoke to someone about it. And, yeah, I think it's...
Yeah. If I'm honest, I still think there'll be a handful of people that don't know the story, because they're either shut off to it, they don't want to hear it.
They don't.
There will be some people that still don't know.
Someone sent me something recently, close enough, but they sent me, did you know that Black and Asian babies are most likely to die? And I was just like, have I not been speaking about this for 5 years? Because that's basically the reason why Arjun passed away. So that's why I've been talking about it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, people don't want to listen, and it's too tragic for them. I was speaking to a friend not too long ago, and I think she was telling me all the stuff even she heard from her family about my loss. And it was, losses they'd had in their family as well, because it's common, obviously, miscarriages and stillbirths. So
unfortunately,
this cousin of hers said, why have you taken time off to go to a baby's funeral? They'd all taken, collectively, they took off time from work because they knew, someone's child. And she didn't understand it. So she was like, why, you guys, she said, you guys are stupid. Why have you taken time off for a baby's funeral? And then when I was posting pictures of Arjun on Instagram and Facebook, because I'm very proud of my creation. He is a beautiful baby. I am 100%. Absolutely going to share him.
100%.
But she told my friend that she shouldn't be sharing pictures of him.
Yeah.
And I know people have a lot of opinions on that, because I know it's not nice to look at. But that's all we have of them. So we're going to share that. We don't have bunches of memories.
But with some people, I just feel, what the audacity to share those opinions. Why? I don't know. I just feel like if you're heavily opinionated, you still know right from wrong, right?
Well, it's worse when it comes back to us and said to us directly.
Well, is there a need?
Yeah.
I mean, because if I analysed you and saw some of the ways that you do things, I might not agree with it.
Yeah.
But I'm not the type of character that's going to go and point that out to you. But you do get those people that are so strongly opinionated that they just can't help themselves.
Yeah.
And again, the message to those people is really, like, keep it to yourself.
Again, they can't meet you where you are.
No, they can't. But and if you don't have that ability to meet someone in the middle, that's not always a bad thing, right? It doesn't mean you always have to agree with everything that someone's doing. Yeah. At least have the decency to either have that conversation or don't have that conversation.
Yeah.
It goes either way. But do you really need to is it so much so that you need to get that point across to that person without then having a conversation about it? Or if you were to have a conversation about it, not meeting them in the middle? It just doesn't make sense. And people say some really hurtful, nasty things or they have a very hurtful, nasty attitude towards certain things. Yeah. I just have to ask why. You know, and or one thing that gets me is, unless they've experienced it themselves, they haven't understood initially, but then something happens, and there's just so much waffle that's happened in between.
Yeah.
And now they're ready to kind of see sense years later, and it's it's bizarre.
I was getting a lot of strange advice from people like, "Oh, you should go back to work."
Yeah.
And again, the responsibility of almost pacifying people was placed on me. So I got a lot of be the bigger person, go back to work. They need closure too. You need to explain this to this person, explain that to this person. And it's like, I need to focus on healing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a very dark place right now.
Mm.
It is not my responsibility to baby anybody. Yeah. I distanced myself and I don't regret it.
Mm-hmm.
I needed that.
Yeah.
I was very aware of what I was doing, and I knew I listened to my body as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And when people were giving me advice to do X, Y, or Z, even based off of what they'd done. So I have a sister-in-law who had a stillbirth, and she said going back to work really, really helped her. And she wasn't pushy; she was suggesting it. And I was like, no, I'm gonna take my maternity leave.
Yeah.
But when I wasn't shutting anyone out, but when I was keeping my distance, people weren't getting offended. They were giving me that space, which was really, really nice. But they were meeting me where I needed to be met. So for example, people would call me, and if I didn't pick up, they'd be like, it's fine. Like, I'm just calling when you're ready. And if you're ready, pick up.
Mm.
And not everyone who was calling was saying the right stuff, but they're trying to do their best. And I understood that. But if I knew they were going to be triggering or it was going to make things worse for me, I distanced very slightly, because I still have to look out for myself. Where I can understand you're trying to give me a lot of love and it's so appreciated, it's not helping me. So I have to put up some boundaries, sadly. But, you know, one of the things that I really appreciated, Tasha, one of my best friends.
She's amazing.
She's
amazing.
She would call me every so often. She didn't
call
bombard.
Me
well, exactly. She never bombarded us. I feel she'd call, and she would just listen to me cry, and that's all I needed. I needed to vent. I needed to just cry and
sit in the mud with me.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, like my friend Gurpreet would call as well, and there was a time where she cried with me. We were just on the phone together, just crying, because I just got Arjun's report back and I knew the details of how and why he'd passed away. And I'd messaged her and she just called and was just like, I'm so sorry. And we just cried. And, you know, it was so almost healing to know that people felt my pain. And that's where my healing came from, that people understood how much he meant, and that he was alive. You know, he meant a lot to us. He wasn't just something that can be replaced. He was really, really important. You may not have met him, but you know how much value he had for me and always will. And when people cried with us, it was just, you know, it was very healing. It was very beautiful. There's
No,
people who still
absolutely.
remember his birthday. They'll
Oh
message.
God, as we
and-
always say, there's some people that always go above and beyond, and it still
Yeah.
amazes me.
There's people who've learned along the way, which is really lovely as well. And it's
Yeah.
better late than never as well. Like two of my uni friends messaged not a couple of months ago and said something like, you know what, we feel like we haven't really been there. We want to remember Arjun, and you know they made I guess they made a note of his birthday and made sure they messaged. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I had someone message me on his birthday, but then delete it because I didn't reply quick enough. And I remember having the conversation with them and I was like, why did you delete this? And they're like, oh, I just, I expect quick replies. And it's like, do you really think I'm sitting on my phone on my son's birthday? Do you not think I'm probably really sad, really disconnected, really sad in a really dark place? Like, I appreciate the message. I really, really do. But you have to give me some time. It's not going to be within 24 hours. It might be a week later. And
It's what makes you wonder about some people. I mean, they're the ones that have been there for such a long time. But more recently, even at work, I have people reach out and just say, oh, I know August 18th is coming up. You okay? That's all it is. And in that moment, sometimes even if I'm not thinking about it, doesn't mean that sends me down a spiral and I'm now suddenly upset.
No.
I'll take a moment. I'll be like, oh, thanks so much for asking. No, I'm okay, actually. Yeah. But they'll ask even a few days later. They'll be like, it's getting closer. You're right? You sure? Like, do you need anything? This and that. Oh, no, I'm okay. And sometimes that even makes you feel a bit better just because you know someone's validated it. You know someone's there and they've kind of... It makes you feel okay rather than send you down a spiral that, oh, everyone's
we're
forgotten.
always thinking about our loss anyway.
Yeah, of course we are. But the more you know that someone's either forgotten or it makes you kind of anticipate. It's a strange one, but it takes one person to mention something small to give you a bit of comfort. But that also makes me wonder about the day and age that we live in now. It's kind of great to some extent because we're all about trying to break these stigmas down, not just baby loss, but there's many stigmas out there. The stigma of men, something I feel really strongly about. A lot of those barriers are slowly being broken down, or we've started to in the Asian community, but just in general.
But some of these rules and, things in place, I think there's a lot of positive aspects to it as well. Like, it's great that we have all these things, but I think we need to, like you said earlier, I think it needs a little bit of a tweak.
It does still need a tweak, but it's when we're in that day and age where we're in the process of breaking those stigmas and people are a lot more accepting and a lot more emotionally available for things like mental health, and we're doing so much in some of those spaces, people are coming together. It does still surprise me that some of these things are still happening where, again, today someone is able to think for themselves, you know what, I'm putting these boundaries up. You know what, I need this time for me. What is my mental health saying? I've experienced a loss. So like all of these kind of topics, they do come together and pull together, and we're breaking those superstitions down. So why is it that same person who recognizes that they need space or that they need, something for themselves, on the flip side, still is strongly opinionated and doing those things to someone else? It really does surprise me, because why can't we all just be the same? Why can't we just be there for people? Yeah. Have the conversations. No one's saying don't have your opinions, but it comes down to
some opinions are better kept inside, though, of course. You've got to look at who you're talking to and understand their own experience. The problem happens when people start debating your experience with you.
100%.
And you cannot do that, because I'm not here to fight. Yep. I'm trying to explain something that's happened to me and something I'm very much feeling. You can't debate that with me. That's 100%. Dehumanizing me in that moment.
100%.
Just listen to what I'm saying, listen to what I need. You can give me bits of advice on what you think will help, but you can't say things that just make no logical sense at the time.
I agree.
I had some great advice from friends who were just like, don't force yourself to go. There were people who were like, force yourself to go out. You need to go out and come out with me. And some people were like, no, you're going to make yourself worse. Take it a step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was practical advice. Sometimes these rules that have been passed down from generations, they just don't work anymore. They're not practical. They're more isolating.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're right.
We have to tweak these traditions to fit the situation.
Absolutely.
Right? It's all good to come together when you know, an elderly person in the family passes away and the person might need help with getting the logistics of things together. When it's a baby, you have to be a bit more cautious about it because there's a grieving mother who's been affected emotionally and physically. And you have to meet her where she is. It's important. So turning up isn't going to make things better, potentially. Ask what they want. If they're okay with you coming round, absolutely go round and be supportive. Don't give her, oh, this is why it happened. No, it's happened. So just sit and just listen. And again, be where they are. But if they don't want to accept your help at the time, you can't force it. And then you can't get offended either.
Well, this is it.
It's such a weird thing to get offended. Like, just take a step back and try again in a month. Try again in a few days. Send a loving message and stop it there for the time being. When they're ready, they'll reach out to you. If you were close before this loss, that's not going to change. You're still. It shouldn't, unfortunately. It shouldn't. It does. But some people get so offended they stop talking to you altogether. And there's nothing we can do about that. And I didn't, to me, it's like I didn't break the relationship. So I can reach out to you and be like, shall we talk? But if you're not going to meet me halfway at this point, I'm not going to beg you back into my life.
Look, for me, I'm accepting of a lot of things, and I do feel people should come together and understand each other. But one thing I haven't been able to tolerate is in that exact situation where that's happened. I'm quite. I put my foot down to say I'm not going to be the one to then go and apologize to someone like that. If you've let that happen and for whatever reason there was distance to begin with and it can't be rectified and you're not willing to do certain things, it is not my responsibility. It wasn't then and it still isn't now to come to you and say, oh, I'm really sorry about this, but can we have a conversation? No. No way. You have not been there on my journey from the beginning. You have not been willing to understand certain things. You've had the audacity to even say or have some certain opinions that weren't correct. Not only do you not want to kind of come together and have a conversation, you now want to act normal and just kind of fly over certain things. It doesn't work.
When you owe an apology.
It does not work. And unfortunately, there's people that have gone above and beyond and still do to validate that that's not what a relationship should be.
Yeah.
We were that close before. We are not going to be that close going forward because you have been the person to put those kind of things in place to say that can't happen anymore. Because I know what I'm like as a person. I know the capacity of my empathy. I know my limit in that regard. I know what I would do. And there can be awkwardness, there can be friction, but just like I said, we can have those discussions. If you've been that close and you've been there throughout everything, you can wholeheartedly come and have a strong opinion and disagree with me on something, even to the point about origin, and you can have your opinions. I'm more than fine with that and we can discuss it. But not if you've not been willing to do certain big things along the way and then just expect that it's fine and now I should appreciate you again. I don't. I don't. And I can't. And that's kind of, you can look at it as that's me kind of trying to protect myself, or whatever you want to call it. It's not really even protecting myself. I don't sit there getting upset about that anymore. That's just the way it is, right? As part of moving forward, you know your people, you keep your people, and you move forward. But I feel it really bizarre that there are still some people who are trying to understand that whole, I'm doing this for me and I'm good because I'm doing X, Y, Z, yet still act another way on the other side. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Definitely.
I think that's the only thing that I feel very strongly about is
definitely.
Yeah, when there has that disconnect for no reason.
Well, thankfully, I think some of these superstitions are on their way out, which
I
I
think
think
so.
it will help it'll be helpful in some ways, or people are trying to
Absolutely.
understand the real meaning behind these rules and the superstitions, which I think it would just help people like us so much more going forward in the future, because change is very, very necessary at the moment, because we really struggled as a generation, I feel,
I feel we have.
with all these rules. And
We're kind of stuck in the middle, right? Because
we're trying to make the changes, but we're also experiencing the pain of it all. So we're the ones to take on the responsibility and beg for these changes, and hopefully that will happen. So yeah, anyway.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and yeah, next episode soon.
Next episode soon. If there's anything that you have that you want us to speak about in specific, let us know. Otherwise, we have some more topics that we're gonna
Definitely.
look to build on and discuss. But thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.